Question. So, what makes a plant a plant? All land plants today share these four unifying characteristics. First, all land plants are going to undergo alternation of generations between a haploid and diploid phase of their life cycle. I'm going to return to this in depth on the next slide, so hold tight on that. Second, all land plants have multicellular embryos that are dependent upon their female parent. This is why we call the lineage that encompasses the kingdom Plantae the embryophytes. So, as part of that life cycle that we call the alternation of generations, multicellular plant embryos develop from zygotes that are protected within the tissues of the female parent. The parental tissues protect the developing embryo from harsh environmental conditions, and she's going to provide nutrients to that embryo, such as glucose and amino acids. Number 3, all plants produce spores. Spores are different from gametes, the sperm and the egg, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But the spores are produced in multicellular plant organs called sporangia. And those spores are protected by that durable polymer sporopollenin, as we've already covered. Fourth characteristic that unites all of the land plants. All plants possess apical meristems. Apical meristems are found on the tips of plant roots, shoots, and leaves. And within these meristems, that's where the plants house their stem cells. Hopefully you remember from 181, stem cells are undifferentiated cells or pluripotent cells that can be coaxed into growing into any tissue type. So we're going to return to meristems and stem cells when we discuss plant growth in Learning Activity 10.1. Okay, so let's spend a few minutes and let me walk you through the alternation of generations. So during part of the plant life cycle, they exist as sporophytes, right here, multicellular diploid bodies. So when you look at a saguaro cactus or an ocotillo, you are looking at the sporophyte phase of the plant life cycle. All of the cells are diploid, 2N, which again, you probably remember from 181. That means they have 2 copies of each chromosome. The sporophyte is going to undergo meiosis. The product of meiosis in plants is not gametes like it is in animals. The product of meiosis in plants is spores. Again, the product of meiosis in plants are these spores. And then what happens next is fundamentally different than the animal life cycle. Those unicellular spores are going to undergo mitosis. They're going to make copies of themselves like a copy machine. And those haploid cells making copies of themselves are going to develop into a multicellular haploid body called a gametophyte. So this is a multicellular body in which all of the cells only have 1 copy of each chromosome. So when you look at moss growing on rocks, that's the stage that you're looking at in the mosses, the gametophyte, the multicellular haploid body. The gametophyte then produces the gametes, the sperm and the egg, which are going to fuse in the process known as fertilization, just like in animals, and create a zygote, just like in animals, returning that plant to the diploid state. Big idea. As plants colonize the planet and become more evolutionarily derived, more complex, the gametophyte phase of the life cycle, that is to say, the multicellular haploid body part of the life cycle, is going to become greatly reduced and hidden within the cones of gymnosperms and the flowers of angiosperms. We're going to come back to this. I know it's a lot, but please take a few minutes and enjoy the Penguin Profs video below entitled The Secret Sex Life of Plants. Super fun, right? But this is a super, super helpful video. And when you watch it, see if you can spot the teddy bear cholla. That's a challenge. Before we move on, though, so this life cycle, this alternation of generations is showing ferns, okay? And so when you look on the underside of the fern leaf, these are not seeds. These are sori, that's the plural. Sorus is the singular. And within that sorus are the sporangia. The sporangia are what produce the spores through the process of meiosis. And remember, those spores then undergo mitosis, make lots of copies of themselves, and create this multicellular haploid body, the gametophyte, which is represented right there. It's small in ferns, but it's still macroscopic. You can still see it with the naked eye. Okay, so here is a photograph of that multicellular embryo in purple that is dependent upon the maternal, the female gametophyte. And then over here, you can see this blue line. That's going to represent what are called placental transfer cells. So this is the interface where she is providing water, glucose, and amino acids. So all plants protect their dependent embryos in this way. Hence the lineage name, the embryophytes. And here's a closer look at the spore-producing structures, the sporangium, which is sitting on top of the sporophyte phase of the moss life cycle. So when you're looking at a moss, the green part that you're looking at, the dominant part of the life cycle, is gametophyte. It's haploid. The 2N, the diploid part of the life cycle, is the sporophyte phase. And then at the tip of the sporophyte is the sporangium. This is going to produce the spores, which you can see this cross section here are colored in purple. Remember, those spores have walls that are made of sporopollenin, which is going to protect them from environmental conditions and make them resistant to desiccation. And then finally, a quick look at growing plant stems. You can see the apical meristem here and the tips of roots, again, apical meristems. Recall that the apical meristems house the plant stem cells. Stem cells can be coaxed into turning into any tissue type that that plant needs.